Miss Elms here again. I have Enzo here. He's going to help us learn about area this week.
Area Day 2, using multiplication to find the area. So we're going to be using Google Slides today, and if you go to my school, you're going to have an assignment called Area Day 2. And if not, you can follow along with a piece of paper and a pencil. So we're going to do another math routine today called Subitizing. You're going to be thinking about how many did you see and how did you see it. So I'm going to give you 3 seconds to look and see how many squares you saw. All right, let's do it. All right, how many did you see? How did you see it? So I saw 12 squares. How did I see it? I saw the 4 on the top, then I saw the 8 on the bottom. And I know that 4 plus 8 equals 12. So there are 12 squares. So last time we talked about this word called area. And so we're going to review. Area is the number of unit squares that cover the surface of a closed figure. And so a figure is the shape here that has the squares inside. And we measure the area in square units. So this shape has 10 square units because there's 10 squares. So last time we talked about unit square and how 1 unit square is 1 square. And that's what we use to find the area. And there are examples of units. There's square centimeters, there's square feet, there's square inches, and there's other ones that we're going to talk about today. So how do we measure the area? Last time we learned that we measure the area by counting the number of square units or the number of squares a figure has. And this time we're learning a new way to find the area. We can also multiply to find the area. So if we know the length and the width, we can multiply. Length times width equals area. The length is the size of the longest side on a figure. The width is the size of the shorter side of a figure. So our tip is count the squares on the length and the squares on the width. So we're going to do that. We're going to count the squares on the length. So by the orange part, there's 1, 2, 3 squares on the length. So our length is 3 square units. Now let's count the width. There's 1, 2 squares along the width. So our width is 2 square units. And now we multiply. 3 times 2 equals 6. So our area is 6 square units. And that's the same as the number of squares that figure has. See, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's the same. So remember, the length times the width is the area. So I want you to be thinking, what's the length and what's the width? And then we're going to use those to find the area. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 squares along the length, so the length is 5 units. Now let's count along the width. 1, 2, 3. There are 3 units along the width. So now we're going to multiply. 5 times 3 equals 15 square units. That's the same as the total number of squares in that figure. So it's kind of like a shortcut. We're using multiplication, which is more efficient. Let's do another one. So we're finding the length, we're finding the width, and then we're multiplying. Let's count the length of this figure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the length is 5 units. Now let's count the squares along the width. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So the width is 4 units. Now we multiply, and I can count by 5s to help me. 5, 10, 15, 20. So the area is 20 square units. So why do we multiply to find the area? Sometimes we can't see the squares, and it's more efficient. So if we're trying to figure out how big a playground is, there aren't actual squares on the ground for us to count. So if we know how long the length is and the width, we can find the area. So the playground has a length of 7 yards and a width of 5 5 yards. What is the area of the playground? So if I remember that the length times the width is the area, then I can just multiply. So the length is 7 yards. The width is 5 yards. So then I multiply to find it. I'm going to count by 5s. 7 times 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. So the area is 35 square yards. I didn't even need to count the squares. I just multiplied. So now we have this figure that has a width of 3 and a length of 7 centimeters. So now I'm going to multiply. The length is 7 centimeters. That's the orange side or the longest side. And then I have the width, which is the shorter side, which is 3 centimeters. And so I'm going to multiply, and that gives me 21 square centimeters. Let's do another one. What's the length? What's the width? And then what's the area? So the length is the longer side. The length is 6 meters. The width is 4 meters, and then I multiply. 6 times 4 is 24 square meters. That's how big that figure is. So how do we measure the area? We can measure by counting the number of squares if they're there. We can also multiply to find the area. So multiplying the length times the width to find the area. All right, here are some good websites to continue your math learning. If you go to my school, you can do iReady Math or Extra Math. And if you want extra practice, you can do Khan Academy, ABC Yeah, or Prodigy.
All right, Enzo enjoyed watching us learn about Area Day 2. See you next week for Area Day 3.